So I've asked a question recently that I think a lot of us are quietly asking at work. How, in challenging times, do we deal with and manage difficult and manipulative people? Hi, I'm Gigi. Welcome back to the Monday Moment. And I'm pretty certain that you might be asking this question too. So specifically what I was thinking is that in VUCA times, and VUCA is that acronym VUCA, that stands for times that are volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. My question is, how do we psychologically manage the fact that in times like these, we just don't have any more time for the manipulation, the dysfunction, or the bad actors at work? And we often also don't have any more patience. I think that this question is relevant and it's salient, and there are a few things that I've noticed that I want to point out. Typically, when things are relatively stable, right, you and me, we may have a little more tolerance for people's foolishness, maybe a little more. We might say, spend an hour trying to understand why somebody said what they said, why they did what they did. We might replay the meeting. We might, write the email and then rewrite the email. You know what I mean? And then go back and soften the email. You might wonder whether or not you should explain yourself to this individual one more time. You try to replay the meeting. You try to repair the relationship. You try to help the person understand your point. You try to figure out whether or not their behavior in the meeting was intentional or accidental, or are they overwhelmed? But what about and what happens when the environment around you is already demanding enormous amounts of cognitive and emotional energy to begin with? In those times, you simply cannot afford it anymore. Neither can I. And I don't mean that in a harsh way. I do mean that, though, as a matter of well-being and well-being at work. Because the truth is, manipulative behavior and the consequences of manipulation comes at a cost. Feeling confused in a conversation at work or at home or in other relationships, that has a cost. Constantly having to defend yourself has a cost. Trying to get clarity from someone who benefits from keeping you confused also has a cost. And eventually, we've just got to become more thoughtful about where our psychological energy is going, particularly at work. So with that, there are a few things that I think become incredibly important. First thing, we've got to learn to recognize the game earlier. Now, not every difficult interaction, I think, is manipulation, right? Not every disagreement means that person is a toxic colleague. However, when you start to see a repeated pattern, right? Patterns of distortion in a conversation, which is lying, baiting, people undermining you, a pattern of moving goalposts that really just make no sense that they're moving. When you see someone in a habitual way creating confusion on the team or just around the deliverables, you don't have to keep entering those conversations as though this time you're going to finally have the all-cure combination of words and language that just makes everything reasonable and makes that person sort of explain themselves. It doesn't work that way. In these kinds of situations, very often, your self-awareness sounds a little like, okay, sigh, I recognize this pattern. And because I recognize it, I can make a different decision. Like, I don't have to continue engaging with this individual. Second, one thing that I think is going to be really helpful is for us to stop over-explaining. And this is a big one, particularly for thoughtful, conscientious professionals like yourself. Because folks like you and me, I think sometimes we think that if we can just explain the context, right? If we could just demonstrate our intentions, if we could just give them one more example or one more piece of information, then surely this confusion, this misunderstanding, this really difficult conversation will go away. Except that sometimes there is no misunderstanding. And every other additional explanation in that scenario becomes another opportunity for someone to pull you in deeper into a conversation that was never designed to create clarity in the first place. They're not on the same page with you. Now, in these situations, you can be warm, right? You can be respectful. Certainly, you should be professional, but you could also be brief. Thirdly, this is big too. Come back to the facts. When everything around you feels uncertain, facts are very grounding. What was actually said? What was actually agreed to? What was the expectation? What was the deadline or deadlines? What was documented? What's your responsibility and what isn't? Facts in these kinds of scenarios with these kinds of people who are being manipulative, they can help us interpret like where the spiral is before we spend enormous amounts of time trying to interpret motives and all of that. Motives that we might never ever completely understand. And then there's this. Stop trying to fix the bad actor. And this might be one of the hardest lessons to learn in professional life, especially for the experienced leader. Because some of us believe that if we're skilled enough, if we are compassionate enough, if we are emotionally intelligent enough, or if we're good enough at leadership, then we ought to be able to create a breakthrough for everybody. And the truth is, we can't. Human-centered leadership does not mean becoming endlessly available for harmful behavior. Compassion does not require the abandonment of boundaries. Hear that again. Compassion does not require the abandonment of boundaries. And psychological safety does not mean tolerating conduct that repeatedly destroys safety for everybody else. Then finally, we've got to find our people, right? And I'm not talking about, and I'm not trying to offend you, I'm not talking about a gossip circle, right? Or an echo chamber. Not a group of people that helps to keep the drama alive. I'm talking about finding grounded, like-minded people, trusted, mature colleagues, mentors. We could even cautiously call them friends at work. People who can help you have a reality check on the situation and can remind you of who you are when an unhealthy environment starts making you question yourself. Because in uncertain times like these, connection matters. But so does discernment. And so does who gets access to you. And I don't know, maybe that's the larger lesson, right? That your emotional energy is not infinite. Your attention is not infinite. Your capacity is not infinite. And those things are not separate from your professional life. They are a part of your professional capacity. So perhaps the question is, how do I finally get this difficult person to just behave or behave differently? Maybe the better question is, what deserves my energy right now? Or better asked, who deserves my energy right now? And sometimes the answer will be the work deserves my energy. The mission. The people who are trying. My own well-being deserves my energy. My future. But this nonsense, this round around, this circus, this game, not this. I see it. I understand what's happening. And I simply don't have time for it any longer. That's your Monday moment, everybody. And if you're new around here, welcome. Monday moments are where we take a few minutes to just think differently about the way that we work, the way that we lead, and how we take care of ourselves while we're doing that. I usually post twice a week, usually on Monday or sometimes Sunday nights, and then later on in the week when I share with you what I learned this week. If you're new here, I'm glad you're here. Learn about leadership, learn about taking care of yourself, and learn about being well at work and in life. Until the next time, everybody, be well. Bye.